prostitutes, tainted women, wronged women, or just insatiable women. Whatever you think about the world's oldest profession, the truth is some of them have held a lot of power, and we're going to talk about them, but first a quick side trip into the history of prostitution and how prostitution has been viewed around the world and through the ages. Now we're all aware, because we are all mature adults after all, what prostitution is, how long it's been around, and all the different words there are out there for those who practice the art and methods of prostitution. And if you don't know, well, you've succeeded in being outed as being non-human, as in you're an alien, but that's for another video. We know for a fact that prostitution was a thing some 5,000 years ago, and the first brothel was in a temple in the Sumerian city of Urak. And we know this because it's documented. In fact, since a brothel was in a temple, a religious temple, we kind of have to talk about sacred prostitution. And sacred prostitution is the act of prostituting oneself for religious beliefs. Or better, a more appropriate definition is having sex in a religious context as part of a ritual or ceremony. And back in the day, way back in the day, sacred prostitution was a thing, a supposedly accepted thing, but the truth is we really don't know how accepted in ancient societies temple prostitution was. All we know is that it did happen, and some argue that temple prostitution actually lasted well into the times of early ancient Greece. Of course, there are those today who would like to see a return to the old ways of praying to their God, but from what I've read, it doesn't look like the idea is catching on. Now, maybe I would have been interested in a little temple sex back in my younger days, but those days are gone. Of course, prostitution outside of the temple was a thing as well. And if we're going to talk about the religious aspects of prostitution, we also have to talk about the social aspects of prostitution. And yeah, there's been a lot of debate about the social role of prostitution all through history. Prostitution was common in ancient Greece, and there were even some women of status who provided both sexual and intellectual companionship. Prostitution was widely accepted in old Rome, and is mentioned in the Bible as well. During the Middle Ages in Europe, prostitutes were regulated and taxed, and there were a lot of public brothels. Then came the 19th century. Venereal disease became a real thing, and there was also a rising feminist movement, and moral codes started changing. No matter where in history or when, the social implication of prostitution run from economic opportunities, as in being a stepping stone to a better life, to being okay in a society, because prostitution provides a service to those whose sexual desires are weird, like yours maybe, and lie outside the norm. And now it's time to look at some of the most famous prostitutes that have ever existed, and their influence on history. And there's a long list of them. In fact, there's so many of them, I don't know where to begin. But before I do so, I gotta tell you who is not on the list, and that is Mary Magdalene. Because I don't believe she was a prostitute. Rather, I believe Mary was just being demeaned to reduce her role in the life of Christ. Demeaned by the Catholic Church. But that is, after all, just my opinion. But that ain't all I gotta tell you, because this list with all these women, well, most of them are what is known as a courtesan, and a courtesan ain't a prostitute, except maybe they are. And with that noted, Theodora, wife of Justinian I, Empress of Byzantine, was probably a prostitute before her marriage, and that was about 1,500 years ago. Madame du Barry, who was the last mistress to King Louis XV, she suffered the fate of the guillotine for treason. Now Gwen, one of the first actresses of the English stage, known for her comedic performances. Mata Hari, the German spy. Calamity Jane, and the list goes on, stretching from the biblical prostitute Rahab to Xavier Hollander and Heidi Fleiss. And of course, we also have John Saul during the Victorian era. And yeah, male prostitution through the centuries was a thing. In fact, a person using their body for monetary gain or to further their standing in life has been with us since we all got up off our asses and started walking around. And the stigma of prostitution has been around for just as long. And the origins of that stigma are found in religious and moral condemnation, the gender norms of any given society, as well as a threat to social order and values. And of course, some of that stigma comes from a good old dose of the clap. Now, I hope you've enjoyed this little video about prostitution, and if it managed to get you all worked up, maybe go talk to your wife. And if you ain't married, well, there's always a street corner down the block. Prostitution, from the history to the stigma. Who would have thunk? Oh, man. Whew. Whew. That went down a little unexpectedly rough. Anyway, temple prostitution, I didn't know that was a thing. Whew. Man. Ooh. Every once in a while. Well, I'm looking at the paint in this. I got it. Yeah, okay. I gotta start thinking about repainting this room. just thinking, just saying. Looks pretty shabby. It's probably from smoking for 20 years in here. That's what a lot of that shit is, and I haven't smoked for 10 years. Anyway, thanks for sticking around. I hope you enjoyed this. This was, like always, a fun video to do. I always learn shit, like I said, especially about that sacred prostitution, temple sex and shit. And man, I'm still fucking struggling with that shot of tequila. I don't know what's going on. I'm out of here. I'm going to do another shot. Thanks for watching, people. I love you. Bye-bye.